Total waste of time. Expanded foam of the time of that type is heavy and has a brownish hue. Nothing wrong with using micro balloons for the whole fill. I've cast huge pieces out of balloon mixers before. Very light, stupidly strong. So let's examine Uncle Greg's statement here and see what conclusion we come to. Your first claim is that this foam is heavy, so I can only imagine when you say that you mean that it's heavier than micro balloons and Q-cell. So should we put that to the test? So in my right hand we have 30 mils of micro balloons and resin, and in my left hand we have well over 30 mil of 56 kg 2-part expanding poly foam. This is probably closer to 100 mil, but because I'm so confident, we're gonna test these two against one another weight-wise. So that is our PU foam, roughly 100 mils, but let's call it 30 mils. 8 grams, 19 grams for our 30 mils of micro balloons and resin.
Sorry!
Now on the subject of strength between the two of these, we know that this one is heavier and denser, this one is lighter and not as dense. But that doesn't mean to say this foam is weak by any stretch of the imagination. It is incredibly strong for foam. Can't even I can just put a thumbprint inside that foam. It is very strong, but being 56 kgs, it's about as strong as the blank that our surfboard was made out of started at. So we're matching densities, we're matching strength of material. This is much, much harder than this. So when you combine the two together inside a board and they're pushing against one another really hard, it's going to end up cavitating, breaking, fracturing its surrounding foam. Now I'm certainly not the only person to be aware of this, and I certainly can't take credit for coming up with this train of thought, and I can show you that when it comes to installing FCS1 fin plugs. By the FCS1 installation guide, the way these plugs are meant to be installed is as follows. So we have our surfboard here, and let's say this top side, that's the bottom of the board where the fin's going to be, and this is our deck side down here. So to start this installation off, we take our FCS hole saw and we route our hole for our plug. We're then going to scoop out that little piece of foam in the middle. So now we have our hole routed for our plug, and our plug is going to sit in the board like that. Look, I routed it at the perfect depth there, to precision. So you would think after that it's just a case of installing the plug. That's the end of it, but no, FCS know that that's probably not going to be ideal in the long run, so they also provide us with one of these. This is called a scribe tool. So after we've drilled this hole or routed this hole in the board, what we're then going to do is we're going to take the end of this, put it in our hole, and we're slowly going to work our way down. Hopefully not going through the deck side of the board, but you get the idea. What we've essentially done is make a small groove or circle that will allow the resin holding our plug in to trace its way down to the fiberglass on the deck side of the board. Just a really thin amount. They call this the H-pack. Now there's a reason FCS don't want you to do this. They could easily have us tie this plug to the deck side of the board with a big ball of resin and micro balloons, but they don't. Why? Because they know if we were to fill this entire void with a big hard ball of resin and micro balloons, not only is it heavier than the foam we just took out of the blank, it's also going to be a giant hard ball pushing up against foam. If this were going to be resin and micro balloons, and we were going to fill this hole with resin and micro balloons with our plug in the top like that, as this plug moves and flexes with the fin, and as the board moves and flexes as it surfs, this giant ball of resin and micro balloons has no flexibility in it at all. It is incredibly hard. So the foam surrounding it is going to be moving and flexing. And because this micro balloon and resin block is so hard, it's slowly going to wear away at the hole. And eventually the whole thing is going to become loose because the hole will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Remember, these plugs aren't glassed over, so the only thing holding it in is the resin inside. So if that resin just works its way out as this board flexes, it makes the hole bigger and bigger. If it ever becomes capable of just falling out like that, the plug is going to come with it. And that's why they have us do the H pattern with a really thin wall of micro balloons and resin. It's not going to add a lot of weight because there's not much resin traveling to the deck of the board. It's not going to be really hard and solid and breaking the foam surrounding it. So that's why we install FCS plugs this way. So we've established that micro balloons and Q-cell mixers are not actually that light relative to PU foam. And when you say these mixers are strong, I think what you mean to say is they're really hard. If I was to throw my little block of micro balloons at the concrete floor, it would explode and shatter, because that's what resin does without fiberglass cloth to tie it together. If I was to throw my foam at the concrete floor, it might dent ever so slightly, but even that would surprise me. Your other complaint when it comes to this two-part foam is that it has a brownish hue. So just for you, I'm making this video and we're going to fix a white PU surfboard with a brownish hue two-part expanding foam. And like many of the titles of my videos state, I'm going to show you how a professional really fixes a surfboard. So as is standard with a job like this, we have cut away and removed any loose pieces of glass, anything that seems to be delaminating, and once we've done that, we're simply going to make a dam out of our masking tape and getting ready to pour our brownish hued two-part expanding foam. Now this ding here, if we had filled it with micro balloons and resin, it probably would have taken around 60 mils of that mixture to fill. So at 18 grams per 30 mils, we'd be looking at, what's that, 36 grams total. Now all that being said, I've never once claimed that my issue with filling boards with micro balloons and Q-cell is with the weight. I don't believe even if we filled this ding up with 36 grams worth of Q-cell that the rider would notice 36 grams making any kind of difference to the way he surfs. And that's no slight on the rider. I know this customer from around town and I can confidently say he's a better surfer than myself without a shadow of a doubt. I know for a fact that I'm not good enough to feel 36 grams worth of oddly placed weight in a board, and still I highly doubt this customer is at a level where he would feel that either. And he's not a bad surfer at all, he's certainly a higher level surfer than I am. My issue with putting incredibly hard Q-cell and micro balloons against really soft foam has always been the fact that eventually that repair will wear away at the foam. And I don't just make these things up. I've seen it. I see it a lot. I get boards in with old repairs, I break those old repairs open, and I notice that the repairs are just rattling around inside the board because they have slowly worn away and chipped away at all of that surrounding foam. So inevitably there's going to be some air bubbles in the foam. So what we're going to do is fill it with a really thin coat of micro balloons. So now we're using a fraction of the amount of micro balloons that Uncle Tony here would have used, but we're making the surface smooth for laminating, and you can already see that brownish hue that he's so worried about is disappearing very quickly. A light spray with some white paint and we can hide this ding completely. And in all honesty, I probably could have put a little bit more on and blended it out throughout the nose. But this board is our customer's step up for when he goes over to a place like Indo and he's dealing with some bigger waves and some reef. So I have no doubt it will be back for more repairs in the future. I don't think this board is his love and his pride and joy, you know, so it's a tidy repair and it'll do just fine for this job. So we're going to put a layer of cloth on both sides of the board, and it should be noted that there are other dings as well down the rails, so it wasn't just this big one that the video is focusing on, so that's why my pieces of cloth extend much further than that repair that I've been showing you. We do have an extra patch of cloth which is on top of our big repair, and then our deck side laminate wraps the rails and our underside does not wrap the rails, it just goes to the rails. Once those two laminations have kicked off, then we're going to mask it up and then we're going to brush on our hot coat or our resin coat, get that on all nice and even, and then we'll flip the board over and repeat the exact same stage on the deck side of the board. Once those two coats have kicked off, coming back the next day, generally we're going to get the sander on it. We're starting this sand at 120 on the machine, then we'll do 240 on the machine, then 320 on the machine, and then we're going to take it outside and we're going to wet sand it with 400, 600, and then for this board we didn't even polish it, we just left it at that sanded 600 finish. And oh my word, will you take a look at that horrible brownish hue that this repair has left. If you have made it to the end of this video, congratulations to you, and to prove that you made it all the way through to the end, let's leave Uncle Tony a big sorry in the comments below. Pedro, Gareth, South County, MJ Rally, and Suzuki Ton, I want to shout you guys out for being members, and Rick Marion, the newest member to Small Kind Ding Repairs. You, my friend, are an epic dude. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Welcome to the new subscribers. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking, and we will see you in the next one. Until then, chee-hoo! Be sure to keep them round in sight.